They spit on me when I saved her. Didn't matter that my knuckles were still bleeding, that my shirt was torn from the fight. They saw blood on me and called me a villain. I stood there in the dust of Cedar Ridge's main street, sun burning the back of my neck, while men I once called neighbors threw stones. One hit my shoulder, another caught me in the ribs. I didn't flinch, just stood there, holding my hat in one hand, blood dripping from the other. "She was asking for trouble," a woman screeched from the crowd. A man spat, "Ain't no decent man dragging a girl out from behind the store at dawn." Sheriff Donovan laughed, a low, bitter sound. He liked the taste of it, the way folks looked at him like he was justice itself. "Silas McGraw," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "Ain't no hero. He's a fool who don't know his place." A rotten egg hit my chest and cracked. The stink of it dripped down my vest, mixing with the sweat and blood already there. I looked up the church steps. She was sitting there, blue dress torn, hair braided neat, trying to hide how her hands shook. Evangeline. She wouldn't meet my eyes, but she didn't look away either. Those eyes were the only calm in the storm, cold and blue, watching me take every curse they threw. I wanted to tell them the truth. I wanted to shout it. I didn't. I just squeezed the blood in my fist and let them think what they wanted, because I knew what I'd done. I'd saved her. And I'd do it again, no matter what this town thought of me. They called me a fool, but that morning I couldn't walk away. It was cold before sunrise, Cedar Ridge still sleeping under the hush that comes before the chickens stir. I was tying my mare to the post outside Mackenzie's store, hoping to grab coffee and flour before heading out to check fence lines. I remember the way the frost bit at my fingers when I touched the reins. I remember the way the world felt quiet. Then I heard it. A sharp cry, like a rabbit caught in a snare. It came from the alley behind the store, between the empty barrels and the crates waiting for the next delivery wagon. At first, I told myself to keep moving. Folks don't want trouble, and neither did I. But that cry came again, strangled, muffled. My boots moved before my mind caught up. There were 3 of them, boys really, but men enough to know wrong from right. Drifters maybe, or sons of men who thought they owned this town. I didn't know, didn't care. They had her cornered against the wall, one holding her wrists above her head, another fumbling with the hem of her blue dress. The third stood back, grinning, a knife glinting in his hand. She was fighting, but her strength was leaving her. Hair loose, lip bleeding, eyes wild with fear. Evangeline. I didn't know her name then, just knew she looked too young to be pinned like that. I told myself to turn around, to fetch the sheriff, to let it be someone else's business, but there was no time. And it was my business the moment I saw that look in her eyes. I stepped into the alley. "Let her go." My voice was calm, but my heart was drumming like war. The one with the knife turned first, smirked. "Ain't your business, old man." I wasn't old. 34 winters on my bones, but war ages a man, and the lines on my face said enough to keep most men careful, but not them. Not today. He lunged first. The blade came low, aiming for my gut. I stepped aside, grabbed his wrist, twisted hard until I heard the pop of bone, and he screamed. The knife clattered on the dirt. The other 2 released her and came at me, fists swinging wild, curses in their throats. I didn't feel the punches. Not really. Blood splashed on the wall when I drove my fist into the bigger one's nose, felt it break under my knuckles. The other tried to grab me from behind, but I rammed my elbow into his ribs, once, twice, until he fell gasping. They weren't fighters, just boys who thought a girl alone was easy prey. When it was over, I stood there, chest heaving, the dawn light catching the blood on my hands. My knuckles were split open, dripping on the dirt like a promise. The 3 of them lay groaning, one crawling away, another crying for his mother. I looked at her. She was still pressed against the wall, breathing fast, eyes locked on me like a deer caught in a trap. "It's over," I said. She didn't move. I took off my hat, tried to soften my voice. "You're safe now." She blinked, swallowed hard, but didn't speak. That's when I noticed the rope burns on her wrists where they'd held her, the way her dress was torn at the shoulder. I took a step closer, slow, careful. "Can you walk?" She nodded, barely, eyes never leaving mine. I picked up the knife, folded it in a rag, tucked it into my coat. Evidence, I thought, if the sheriff decided to do his job. But I already knew how this town worked. She took one step, then another, knees shaking. I offered my arm, and she hesitated, then took it, holding on like she might fall if she didn't. Her hand was small, Cold, trembling, we stepped out of that alley just as the sun broke over the ridge, painting Cedar Ridge in gold like it didn't know the darkness that lived in its streets. People saw us. The milkman, the store clerk opening his doors, old Mrs. Hartwell sweeping her porch. They saw her clutching my arm, dress torn, blood on my shirt. They didn't see the 3 boys crawling in the dirt behind us. They didn't see what really happened. They saw what they wanted to see. I led her to the church steps. The pastor wasn't there yet, but I thought it was the only place she'd be safe. She sat down, hands folded tight in her lap, staring at the ground. I crouched in front of her. "You got family here?" She shook her head. "Got a place to go?" "Nothing." "Listen," I said softly. "I don't know your name, but you're safe now. You hear me?" Her eyes lifted, blue as a winter sky, and for a moment I saw something in them. Not fear, not shame. Something stronger. Then she looked away, hugging herself as she rocked back and forth. I stood there, unsure, hands still dripping blood onto the church steps. The bell tolled, calling the town to morning prayer. And that was when the whispers started. Old Mrs. Hartwell's eyes narrowed. The milkman shook his head. "She was with him," someone muttered. "In the alley before dawn." God knows what they were doing. I felt it then, the turning of the tide, the way the town twisted truth into something ugly because it was easier than facing its own darkness. The sheriff came around the corner, spitting tobacco, adjusting his badge like it meant something. "McGraw," he called out, "what the hell have you done now?" I opened my mouth to speak, to tell him about the 3 drifters, the knife, the screams. But I looked at her, sitting there, head down, hands shaking, and I saw the way they were all looking at her, at me, at us. And I knew. They wouldn't listen. So I closed my mouth, wiped the blood on my pants, and stood tall. If they wanted a villain, I'd let them think it. Because I knew the truth. I saved her, and I'd do it again. That was the morning I learned what Cedar Ridge really was. A town that loved its peace more than its justice. A town that would rather damn a man than face its own sins. And I was the man they chose. They spit on me for saving her, but I would not let them spit on her. So I took it. I took every curse, every rock, every lie they threw. I took it so she wouldn't have to, because that's what men like me do. We take the blame, we take the blood, and we stand tall, even when the town we protect is too blind to see it. They gathered around me like vultures, some still holding prayer books, some still wiping sleep from their eyes, but all of them carried the same look, that look that says, "We've already judged you, Silas McGraw." I stood in the dirt, hat in hand, blood drying on my knuckles. My shirt stuck to my back with sweat and the stink of fear that wasn't mine. Evangeline sat on the church steps, hands folded, head bowed. She hadn't spoken since I pulled her from that alley. She just sat there, silent, while the town sharpened its words. "McGraw," Sheriff Donovan said, spitting into the dust. "What the hell were you doing behind the store at dawn with a young lady like that?" His hand rested on the butt of his pistol. Not because he needed it, because it made him feel taller. "She needed help," I said, voice low. "Help?" Old Mrs. Hartwell snapped, leaning on her cane. "Is that what you call it these days? Dragging a girl into the dark?" I looked at her, at the way her lips curled, the way her eyes darted to the crowd for approval. She wanted blood. She wanted mine. "I found her being attacked," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And I stopped it. Lies moved faster than truth in Cedar Ridge. They always had." "Attacked, you say?" Sheriff Donovan mocked, glancing at the men around him. "But funny thing is, nobody else saw these attackers. All we saw was you, covered in blood, pulling a girl out from behind the store." Someone laughed, sharp and mean. I turned toward the sound, saw Tommy Fletcher, 16 and trying to be a man, with dirt under his nails and a rock in his hand. "Pa says you're nothing but a no-good drifter with a hero complex," Tommy spat. That rock left his hand before I saw it coming. It struck me square in the chest, thumped hard, but I didn't flinch. I just looked at him, saw the fear in his eyes hiding behind the smirk. I remembered being his age, remembered wanting to be seen, remembered wanting to belong. "You done?" I asked. He swallowed but didn't say another word. A hush fell over the crowd. Pastor Williams stepped forward, Bible in hand, his black coat billowing in the breeze. "Mr. McGraw," he said, voice smooth like a snake's belly, "you have to understand the appearance of impropriety here. A man your age, alone with a young lady in the dark." "Appearance," I cut in sharp, "ain't the same as truth, Pastor." His eyes flickered, just for a second, before the holy calm came back. "Perhaps," he said, "but the good book says a man must avoid even the appearance of evil." "Don't quote scripture at me," I said, taking a step closer, feeling the heat rise in my blood. "Not when you're ready to let 3 men get away with what they tried to do to her." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Sheriff Donovan's hand dropped to his pistol. "Careful, Silas," he said softly. "You're on thin ice already." I laughed, bitter, dry. "I've been on thin ice since the day I buried my brother at Gettysburg," I said. "Ain't no ice left to break." Evangeline lifted her head then, just a little. Her eyes met mine, blue and cold and burning all at once. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She closed it again and looked away. "See?" Mrs. Hartwell screeched, pointing her cane at Evangeline. "She can't even defend you. She's ashamed, and you ought to be too." I wanted to shout. I wanted to tell them how I found her, how they tried to tear her dress, how she fought them with everything she had, how she almost broke when the knife came out. But I didn't, because I knew they wouldn't listen. The town doesn't want truth. It wants a story that makes it feel safe, and it's safer for them to believe I'm the monster. They started to chant, "Get out! Get out! Get out!" A rock struck my arm, another caught me on the thigh. A rotten egg hit my boot, split open, dripping down into the dirt. I stood there, took it, let them scream, let them spit. Evangeline stood up, slow, clutching her torn dress around her shoulders. "Please," she whispered, but it was too quiet for anyone but me to hear. "Don't," I said back, just as quiet. Sheriff Donovan raised his hand, and the crowd fell silent. "You got till sundown, Silas," he said, "and then you're gone. You understand me?" I nodded. I understood plenty. They parted for me as I walked to my horse. The crowd smelled of sweat and fear and self-righteousness. Men looked away. Women clutched their children. I caught the eye of young Tommy Fletcher, still clutching another rock, but he didn't throw it. I climbed into the saddle, feeling the leather groan under my weight, and looked back once. Evangeline was still standing there, alone on the church steps, hair blowing in the wind. She was crying, but she didn't wipe the tears away. I turned my horse toward the edge of town. They think they won. They think they ran me off. They think the problem is gone, but they don't know what's coming. They don't know who she really is. They don't know who's coming for her. And for the first time since the war, I felt something burn in my chest that wasn't regret. It was promise. It was fire. They spit on me for saving her. But I'd do it again. And when the day comes, they'll remember what they did to the man who tried to protect them. Because some men don't need their forgiveness. They need their memory. They gave me until sundown. Sheriff Donovan's words hung in the dust like a noose I could feel around my neck. I rode slow down Main Street, past folks who wouldn't meet my eye, past children who stopped playing to stare, past the women pulling laundry off lines like they were trying to scrub the memory of me clean. I didn't look back at them, didn't need to. Their silence was loud enough. At One-Eyed Pete's saloon, I tied my mare and stepped inside. The door creaked, the room stilled. Men with whiskey breath and twitchy hands watched me, shifting in their chairs. Pete didn't say a word, just slid a glass down the bar. The whiskey burned, but I let it. "Trouble follows you, McGraw," Pete muttered, wiping a glass with that same filthy rag he always used. "Never asked it to," I said. "Trouble don't care what you ask." He was right. Trouble never cared. I downed the whiskey, left a coin on the bar, didn't say goodbye. Didn't think I'd need to. Outside, the wind was picking up, rattling the sign over Mackenzie's store, sending dust devils down the empty street. Clouds gathered on the horizon, thick and gray, promising a storm by nightfall. Fitting, I thought. Storms were always fitting for days like this. I rode back to my shack on the edge of town. One room, tin roof patched with hope and desperation. A crooked porch where I'd sit some nights with coffee, pretending the world was quieter than it was. Inside, I packed what little I owned. My brother's photograph, taken before the war, stole his smile. My mother's Bible, pages thin as whispers. A handful of letters I never sent. A box of bullets, heavier than it should have been. I strapped my rifle across my back, cinched the saddlebags, and led the mare to the trough for water. She drank slow, flicking her ears, sensing the tension crawling under my skin. Animals always know. When she lifted her head, I saw her reflection in the water. Not the mare's. Evangeline. She stood at the edge of the fence, blue dress patched at the shoulder, hair braided tight, dust on her boots. Her eyes were red from crying, but she held herself straight, chin lifted like she was trying to remember how to be proud. "You leaving?" she asked, voice low, shaking. "Town says I am. Is that what you want?" I didn't answer, didn't trust my voice. She took a step closer, fingers gripping the fence rail, knuckles white. "I didn't tell them the truth," she said, voice breaking, "because I didn't think they'd listen." "They wouldn't have," I said. A gust of wind lifted the hair around her face, carried the smell of rain and the coming storm. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be." She looked at me, those eyes blue as the coldest water I ever drank on a dusty day, and I saw something in them, fear and something else, hope. "I don't want you to leave," she said. I closed my eyes. The wind whistled through the fence rails. "I know," I said. Silence stretched between us, heavy as the clouds rolling in. She looked down, fingers twisting the fabric of her dress. "I sent a telegram," she said. I opened my eyes. "To who?" "My father." I felt the air change, like the world holding its breath. "Who's your father, Evangeline?" She looked up, and I saw it in her eyes before she spoke. "General Augustus Porter." Lightning cracked somewhere over the ridge, thunder rolling slow, heavy, like hoofbeats in the distance. My mouth went dry. "You sent for him," I said, voice flat. She nodded. "They'll come for me," she said, "and for you." I stared at her, trying to read the storm in her eyes, trying to see the future I'd spent my whole damn life running from. "You shouldn't have done that," I said. "I couldn't let them send you away like a criminal," she shot back, tears brimming. I looked away, jaw tight. The town was about to learn what it meant to spit on a man who saved a general's daughter. "You know what happens now, don't you?" I asked. She nodded, a single tear breaking free. "They're going to be afraid." I stepped closer, rested a hand on the fence post between us. "And you?" I asked. She swallowed hard. "I'm afraid too," she whispered. The first drops of rain began to fall, darkening the dust at our feet. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a handkerchief, held it out. She took it, pressing it to her face, breathing in the smell of smoke and sweat in the prairie. "I need you to be strong, Evangeline," I said. "I will." The wind picked up, rattling the barn doors, shaking the loose tin on the roof. I could see the dust cloud rising on the horizon, distant but moving fast. Men on horses, heavy riders. I pulled my coat tighter around me, checked the revolver at my hip, adjusted the rifle strap on my shoulder. "You should go inside," I told her. She shook her head. "I'll stay." The rain fell harder, drumming on the porch, on the trough, on the hat brim pulled low over my eyes. I swung into the saddle, feeling the leather creak, the horse shifting under me. Evangeline reached out, touching my boot in the stirrup. "Silas," she said, voice soft, almost lost in the storm. I looked down at her. "I'm sorry," she said again. I nodded. "Don't be," I said. I turned the mare toward the road, the mud splashing under her hooves as we moved forward. I didn't look back. Couldn't. Behind me, the storm swallowed Cedar Ridge, washing the dirt from the streets, soaking the wooden signs, pounding on the rooftops, washing away the blood, washing away the lies. Ahead, the riders came closer, their silhouettes sharp against the flashes of lightning, swords glinting, sabers raised. I knew then, the reckoning was coming, and I would not run, not this time, because I had saved her, and the town would remember. I didn't sleep that night, sat on the porch, lantern hissing low, rain drumming on the roof. The storm washed Cedar Ridge clean, but it couldn't wash away what was coming. Every hoofbeat on the road, every creak of the windmill made my hand twitch toward the rifle by my chair. They'd come by dawn. I felt it. Sometime before sunrise, the rain slowed, turning to a mist that clung to your skin like regret. I saddled the mare, rolled up my bedroll, tied it down. I wasn't planning on running, but a man likes to be ready. The town was quiet when I rode in. Main Street muddy, windows shuttered, lanterns guttering in the dawn wind. A dog barked somewhere, then fell silent. Then I heard it. Hoofbeats. Not one, not 10, but many. Heavy, measured. The sound of men who knew how to ride. The sound of cavalry. I pulled up near the old church, dismounted, tied the mare to the rail, and waited. They came over the ridge like thunder. A line of riders, sabers flashing in the dawn light, coats dark with rain, steam rising from the horses. They moved like a single thing, a black wave rolling towards Cedar Ridge. At their head rode a man I recognized before I knew his name. Straight-backed, tall in the saddle, gray beard braided, eyes sharp as rifle barrels. General Augustus Porter. I felt the town wake up around me. Windows cracked open, doors creaked, faces peered out from behind curtains. Children pulled back by mothers with wide, frightened eyes. The cavalry rode straight down Main Street, horses' hooves splashing in the mud, eyes forward, faces set. They didn't look left or right. They didn't need to. At the church steps, they halted. The horses snorted, pawed at the wet ground, restless. General Porter dismounted. His boots hit the mud with a soft thump that sounded louder than any gunshot. Behind him, Evangeline stepped down from one of the horses. She wore a coat too big for her hair braided neat, her chin lifted. She looked at me. I looked back. The general swept his gaze across the town. It was the kind of look that weighed men, measured them, judged them before they could open their mouths. Then he spoke. "Where is the man who saved my daughter?" His voice was quiet, but it carried, like thunder over dry grass. No one answered. They all looked at me. I stepped forward, hat in hand. "Here," I said. His eyes locked on mine. Gray steel, cold and clear. He nodded once. "Silas McGraw," he said, like he already knew my name. "Yes, sir." He looked past me, at the people now creeping out onto the porches, gathering in the mud, hats in hands, eyes down. "I hear you were run out of this town," he said. The sheriff stepped forward, badge crooked on his chest, hat in hand, eyes shifting. "General, it was a misunderstanding." The general's hand shot up. Sheriff Donovan shut his mouth so fast I heard his teeth click. "A misunderstanding," the general repeated, slow, tasting the words like something bitter. He turned to the townsfolk. "All of you watched while my daughter was cornered by scum," he said, voice rising. "Watched while a man you call neighbor fought to save her." He paused. "You watched while he was humiliated for doing what none of you had the spine to do." No one spoke. No one moved. "You," he said, pointing at the sheriff. "You let this happen?" Donovan swallowed. "General, we didn't know she was your daughter." The general's eyes narrowed. "Would it have mattered?" Donovan looked at his boots. Didn't answer. The general turned back to me. "Mr. McGraw," he said, "on behalf of my family and the state of Texas, I thank you." He held out his hand. I looked at it. Big hand, calloused, scar across the knuckles. A soldier's hand. I took it. His grip was firm, real. "Your daughter's safe," I said. "I know," he replied, voice lower now. "Because of you." Behind him, the cavalry sat their horses, silent, watching. The townsfolk shifted, eyes darting, ashamed. Then Evangeline stepped forward. She looked small, standing next to her father, but her eyes were steady. She took my hand, held it. "I told him everything," she said, voice strong, clear. "I told him what you did." I nodded, throat tight. General Porter turned back to the town. "You owe this man your apology," he said. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. One by one they came. Old Mrs. Hartwell, tears running down her wrinkled face. The sheriff trembling, hat in hand. Tommy Fletcher, the boy who'd thrown a rock at me, eyes red, lip quivering. They came and they said it. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Each word dropped into the mud, heavy, real. I didn't smile, didn't nod, just looked each of them in the eye, let them see it, the cost of their fear. When it was done, the general looked at me. "You're welcome to ride with us, Mr. McGraw," he said. I shook my head. "My place is here," I said. He studied me, then nodded. "I respect that." He mounted his horse, Evangeline swinging up beside him. She looked down at me, eyes bright. "Thank you," she mouthed. Then the general raised his hand. The cavalry turned. Hooves thundered as they wheeled, riding out of Cedar Ridge, a black river moving back toward the ridge. I stood there in the mud, hat in hand, watching them go. The townsfolk stood around me, silent. The rain started again, soft at first, then harder, washing the mud from my boots, washing the blood from the boards of the church steps. They spit on me for saving her. They tried to run me out. They tried to break me, but I was still here. And now they would remember. They all left. General Porter, Evangeline, the 100 riders with sabers and cold eyes. Their hoofbeats faded into the dawn, leaving Cedar Ridge quiet, too quiet. I stood in the street, hat in hand, the mud clinging to my boots. Rain still dripped from the eaves, pattering on the boards of the walkway, washing the last of the night's sins into the dirt. The townfolk didn't leave. They stayed there, watching me, watching the empty road where the cavalry had gone. They looked at me different now, not with hate, not with fear, but with something that almost looked like shame. Mrs. Hartwell was the first to move. She shuffled forward, her cane sinking into the mud, skirts dragging, bonnet soaked. She stopped in front of me, eyes wet, lip trembling. "I misjudged you, Mr. McGraw," she whispered. Then, slow, painful, she bent her knees and knelt. The mud splashed on her skirts. She didn't flinch. She stayed there, eyes lowered, waiting. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Then the sheriff stepped forward, hat twisting in his hands, badge glinting in the gray light. He swallowed hard. "Silas." His voice broke. I was wrong. His knees hit the mud, then the pastor, then the storekeeper, then the blacksmith. One by one, Cedar Ridge came forward. Men who'd called me a monster, women who'd pulled their children away from me, boys who'd thrown rocks. They all came. They all knelt. They knelt in the mud, rain dripping off their hats, pooling in the street, soaking into their clothes. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Their silence was enough. I stood there, hat in hand, looking down at them, at the way their shoulders shook, at the way they couldn't meet my eyes, at the way the rain washed them clean. And for a moment, I almost hated them, because it was easy for them to kneel now, easy for them to say sorry when the cavalry had come, when the fear had passed, when the man they tried to break stood before them unbroken. But as I watched them, mud on their faces, tears in their eyes, I saw it, the truth. They were sorry, not because they were caught, not because they were afraid, but because they finally saw. They saw what I saw. They saw her, Evangeline, the girl they tried to shame, to silence, to forget. They saw the fear in her eyes, the blood on her dress, the way she looked at me when I saved her. They saw themselves, and it broke them. I took a deep breath. The rain smelled like dust and cedar, the kind of smell that tells you something's over, and something else is beginning. "Stand up," I said. My voice was rough. They didn't move. I said, "Stand up." Mrs. Hartwell lifted her head, eyes wide. Slowly, she pushed herself up, leaning on her cane, mud dripping from her skirts. The others followed. The sheriff, the pastor, the men, the women, the children. They rose, mud-stained, rain-soaked, eyes red. I looked at them, one by one. "Don't kneel to me," I said. "Kneel to her." They looked confused. I pointed to the steps of the church, to where she had sat, alone, trembling, blue dress torn, hair falling in her face, to where they had let her be humiliated, to where they had let her be blamed. "Kneel to her," I repeated, "to every woman you ever doubted, to every child you ever turned away." The pastor wiped his eyes. "I understand," he said. I stepped back, letting them see the spot, letting them remember, and they did. They remembered. They would remember. Because forgiveness isn't just words in the rain. Forgiveness is the mud on your knees, the tears in your eyes, the promise you make to never look away again. The sheriff stepped forward. He held out his badge. "Take it," he said. I shook my head. "No." "Please," he said, voice breaking. "This town needs a man like you." I looked around, at the faces watching me, at the hope in their eyes. They were tired, tired of fear, tired of hate, tired of looking away. Maybe I was tired too. I took the badge, held it in my hand. It felt heavy, like something real. "I ain't your sheriff," I said, "but I'll stand with you." The sheriff nodded, relief flooding his face. The others exhaled, like they'd been holding their breath forever. The rain slowed, turning to mist again. The clouds parted, just enough for a shaft of light to break through, falling on the church steps, on the muddy street, on the people of Cedar Ridge. They looked at me, and I looked at them, and in that moment we understood each other. They would remember, they would change, and I would help them, because a man can walk away from a town, or he can stay and make it better. They spit on me for saving her, but now they stood with me, and I stood with them. The rain stopped, the wind shifted, and the town of Cedar Ridge took its first breath of the new day. The rain stopped, the mud dried slow in the Texas sun, and Cedar Ridge took its first breath in a long time. I stood on the church steps, badge in my pocket, rifle on my shoulder, watching them. Men fixing fences together, women sweeping porches, children laughing in the street they once used for spitting. They looked at me different now, not with fear, not with shame, but with respect. Evangeline came up beside me, hair catching the morning light, blue eyes steady. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. "Thinking about leaving?" she asked. I shook my head. "Thinking about staying." She smiled, soft, like sunrise on cold land. "This town needs you." I looked out at Cedar Ridge. At the shops, the church, the dirt roads turning to dust again. At the people, trying, failing, trying again. "It ain't about needing me," I said. "It's about them learning to stand." She slipped her hand into mine. Warm, steady, real. "Then let's teach them," she said. And right there, under the wide Texas sky, I felt it. Not the weight of war, not the ache of regret, but something close to peace. They spit on me once. Now they stand with me, and I stand with them. Because this is my town now. And together, we'd keep it worth saving. Sometimes a story from the Old West isn't just a story. It's a mirror, a reminder, a lesson carved in dust, blood, and the quiet courage of a man who refuses to walk away. Watching Silas stand alone in Cedar Ridge, taking the blame so a young woman could keep her dignity, I felt something deep in my chest, that tightening, that knowing, because we all know what it's like to stand alone. Maybe you've been there, standing up for what's right while the world spits on you. Maybe you've watched people turn away, too afraid or too comfortable to stand with you. Maybe you've carried the weight of silence because you knew the truth, and you knew it would cost you. And maybe, like Silas, you kept standing anyway. What Silas teaches us is that honor isn't a word you say in church or write on a sign. It's the mud on your boots when you walk through hell for someone else. It's the blood on your hands when you fight for those who can't fight for themselves. It's the silence you keep when your truth would break someone who isn't ready to carry it. But it's also the moment you realize you don't have to stand alone forever. That there comes a day when those who once turned away find the courage to stand beside you, when your quiet fight becomes the spark that wakes others up. Because justice doesn't arrive on its own. It rides in with men and women willing to lose everything for the right thing. It's carried by small acts of courage that ripple outward, turning shame into redemption, turning fear into community. In your life, you may face a moment like Silas did, a moment when you see someone in trouble, when you hear a voice calling out in the dark, when you see injustice and you feel your gut tighten, telling you to move. You will have a choice. Look away, keep your head down, tell yourself it's not your business, or step forward, even if it costs you your comfort, your reputation, your peace. Because a man or woman who steps forward is worth more than 1,000 who stand aside. We live in a world that often rewards silence. That tells us it's safer to look away. That whispers, stay quiet, stay small. But stories like Silas McGraw remind us why we can't. They remind us that the world changes when one person refuses to walk past injustice, when one person is willing to fight, to bleed, to stand in the dirt and say, not here, not today. And when you do that, you give others permission to do the same. You teach your children to stand tall. You remind your neighbors that right and wrong still matter. You show the world that courage is contagious. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find that the people who once doubted you will kneel and say, I'm sorry, teach us. And you will lift them up, because that's what people like Silas do. They don't carry grudges, they carry hope. The lesson from Cedar Ridge is simple, but it's hard. Be the person who stands up, even if you stand alone, because someday you won't be alone anymore. Sometimes we think our world is too far gone, too broken, too divided. We think the West was different, a place of simple good and evil, of clear choices. But the truth is the West was complicated, messy, human, just like us. And if men like Silas could choose to do the right thing when it cost them everything, so can we. If a broken town could learn to change, so can we. If a young woman's courage could ripple outward and save an entire community, so can ours. What will you do when your moment comes? What will you do when you hear that cry for help, when you see injustice in your street, your workplace, your home? Will you look away, or will you stand? Because the West was built by men and women who stood, not because they were fearless, but because they were willing. We all have a Cedar Ridge in our lives. We all have a moment when we are called to be Silas. We all have a choice, and it is my hope that when your moment comes, you will stand, that you will protect what is right, that you will carry the weight of honor, even when it is heavy, and that you will help build a world where others will stand with you, just as Cedar Ridge finally stood with Silas. Because courage isn't about never feeling fear, it's about feeling it and standing anyway. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of who you want to be in this world, I invite you to join this journey with us. Hit that subscribe button and become part of a community that values courage, honor, and stories that matter. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that one person standing up can change everything. Leave a comment below and tell me, have you ever had a moment when you had to stand alone for what's right? How did it change you? Let's build a place where stories of courage are remembered, where standing up for what's right isn't rare, but expected, where the spirit of the Wild West lives on in the choices we make every day, because the world still needs people like Silas, people like you, people willing to stand. Thank you for riding with me through this story. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep your boots muddy, your head high, and your heart brave.